What if I told you the most magnetic force a man can ever show a woman has nothing to do with money, appearance, or social standing? The truth is, it comes down to something far deeper: how he carries himself. Most men never realize this. They waste years chasing women with gifts, compliments, and flashy achievements. They try to prove they are worthy. Yet all that effort only pushes her further away. You may have lived this yourself, pouring in time, bending over backward, hoping to spark desire, only to see the fire fade. Here's the hard truth: women are not drawn to constant effort or desperate approval. What pulls them in is far more subtle, yet infinitely more powerful. It's not about doing more. It's about embodying something she can feel without you saying a single word. The ancient Stoics knew this long before modern psychology caught up. They understood that power, presence, and restraint are magnetic. A woman isn't drawn to the man who tries the hardest. She's drawn to the man who simply is. And that, gentlemen, is what we're going to uncover today. The number one masculine trait women secretly crave: what makes them feel attraction beyond reason. And more than that, I'll give you 5 practical ways to live it out daily, so you no longer have to wonder why your efforts fall flat. But before we begin, I want to know your story. Drop your name, where you're from, and the biggest challenge you're facing in relationships right now. Because here, we rise together. Now, let's begin the journey. Number 1, stop apologizing. Let's get straight to it. Too many men weaken themselves with too little words. I'm sorry. Not because they've harmed someone, but because they've been trained to soften their presence, to ask for permission just to exist. Here's the truth: every needless apology doesn't make you look kind. It makes you look uncertain. And nothing drains attraction faster than insecure energy. Think about the man who constantly says, "Sorry, is this okay?" Or, "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." What he's really broadcasting is doubt in his own value. He isn't standing in his presence. He's begging for acceptance. Women don't desire that. At best, they tolerate it. At worst, they sense weakness and take advantage of it. Picture this: Mark, 30, works in finance. He's smart, fit, ambitious, but on every date, he peppers the conversation with apologies. When the waitress offers dessert, he shrugs. "Oh, sorry, I don't eat sugar." When sharing a book he enjoyed, he adds, "Sorry if this sounds silly." By the end of the evening, his date doesn't remember confidence, she remembers hesitation. And hesitation always translates into fragility. Later, when she tells her friends, she says, "He's nice, but I never felt pulled toward him." Why? Because she never once sensed that he trusted himself. His constant smoothing over forced her to take the lead. And that's not the energy that sparks desire. Here's the Stoic truth: women don't want endless apologies. They want presence. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Stop apologizing for simply existing. Start living with intention." Now, let's be clear. This doesn't mean bulldozing through people or refusing to admit when you're wrong. Real men accept responsibility, but there's a world of difference between accountability and compulsive apologizing. Accountability says, Yes, he made a mistake. I'll fix it. Over-apologizing says, I'm sorry for being here. One builds respect, the other erodes it. So how do you break the cycle? Start noticing when that sorry wants to slip out for something small, asking a question, taking up space, sharing an opinion. Pause it. Replace it with strength. Instead of, sorry I'm late, say, thanks for waiting, instead of sorry to bother you. Say, do you have a moment? These tiny shifts carry enormous weight. She may not consciously say, wow. He never over-apologizes, but she will feel the difference. You'll project calmness, certainty, and masculine self-respect. And those, gentlemen, are the qualities women secretly crave. Now lock it in. Drop a comment below with the phrase, I own my space. Make it your declaration that you no longer apologize for simply being you. Number 2, lead. Don't chase. One of the most common mistakes men make in relationships is chasing. You know the pattern. He's always the one sending the first text. He's constantly arranging the next meeting. He's subtly pleading for her time, hoping to convince her to say yes. Here's the paradox. The harder a man chases, the quicker she pulls away. Why? Because chasing radiates insecurity. It's the energy of someone who doubts his own value, someone who secretly believes he must prove himself before a woman will consider him worthy. That kind of energy doesn't attract, it repels. Leading, on the other hand, comes from confidence. It says, I already know my worth. I'm moving forward with purpose. You're welcome to join. But whether you do or not, my path doesn't stop. That single shift in energy transforms everything. Think of it this way. Chasing puts her in the driver's seat. You're reacting to her moods. You're following her signals. You're letting her set the pace. Leading restores you to your natural masculine role. You set the direction. You define the frame. You extend the invitation. And women respect that deeply. This is not about control, it's about clarity. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus once said, no man is free who is not master of himself. When you chase, you're enslaved to her attention. Your happiness rises and falls with every text or call. But when you lead, you remain centered. You create order, make decision, and live with intention. That stability pulls women closer. Let's make this practical. Leading doesn't mean being aggressive or arrogant. It means taking initiative with calm confidence. Instead of begging for her time, you frame the opportunity. I'm checking out a new spot Thursday at 8. You're welcome to come along. Notice the difference. That's not a plea, it's an open door. If she says no, you're still going. If she says yes, she's stepping into your world, not the other way around. This is how attraction grows naturally. Because women aren't drawn to men who beg for attention. They're drawn to men who carry direction, who hold their ground, and who don't crumble when told no. Security flows from your grounded presence. Excitement flows from your ability to guide the moment. But leadership is bigger than planning dates. It also means emotional leadership. If she brings chaos or drama, you don't get swept into the storm. You remain steady. You set the tone. You show her that her emotional waves cannot shake your foundation. That is true leadership. Here's the mindset shift. Stop asking, how do I make her like me? Start asking, how do I invite her into the life I'm already building? When you do this, scarcity vanishes. Abundance takes its place. You stop seeking approval and start leading with purpose. So here's the challenge. The next time you feel the urge to chase, pause and ask, am I leading or am I reacting? If you're reacting, shift immediately. Women may not verbalize it, but they will feel the difference between the man who leads and the boy who chases. Now, lock it in. Drop a comment below with the phrase, I lead my life. Make it your declaration that chasing ends today and leadership begins. Number 3. Attraction without need. Here's a truth. Most men hesitate to face. The quickest way to kill attraction is to act as if your happiness depends on her. When you radiate clingy energy, checking your phone every few minutes, dissecting every text, or bending over backwards to prove your worth, you're not sparking desire, you're smothering it. Women are highly attuned to neediness. The moment they sense you need them more than you simply want them, the mystery fades. Attraction doesn't grow in pressure. It grows in freedom. When you're calm in yourself, when your worth isn't tied to her reactions, that's when she begins to lean in. That's when she starts chasing you. This is exactly what the Stoics meant when they spoke of self-sufficiency. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." If your greatest ambition is merely to win her approval, you've already diminished yourself. But if your ambition is growth, creation, and living fully, that energy flows into every interaction, and women can sense it instantly. Let's ground this in a story. Consider David, 32, an architect in Chicago, when he began dating Emma, 28, a designer. Their chemistry was strong, but soon David fell into the trap of neediness. Whenever Emma didn't reply quickly, he would send follow-up messages. Did you see my text, or are you upset on dates? He constantly sought reassurance. Do you like me? Do you want to see me again? To him, it was comfort. To her, it was pressure, and pressure always suffocates attraction. Within weeks, Emma pulled away. Here's the twist. When David recognized his mistake, he shifted. He stopped making Emma the center of his universe and reconnected with his passions, his projects, his fitness, his friends. Soon his energy became light, calm, and self-contained. What happened? Emma noticed. She reached out again, curious about the change. Because the man who doesn't need her is the one she cannot ignore. Here's the core lesson. Women aren't drawn to men who see them as the missing piece of their life. They're drawn to men who are already whole, men who see women as an addition, not the foundation. That's why true confidence is magnetic. It communicates, I'd love for you to be here, but I don't need you to be. So how do you apply this the next time you feel the urge to double text or over-explain? Pause. Ask yourself, am I acting from genuine desire or from a hunger for validation? When you move from desire, you draw her closer. When you move from need, you push her away. Here's your challenge. If you're ready to live from strength instead of desperation, write this in the comments. I need nothing. Let it be your declaration, your standard, your reminder that Attraction thrives when you stand complete within yourself. Number 4. Interest, not approval. One of the biggest traps men fall into with women is confusing approval for attraction. They believe that if she laughs at their jokes, says they're handsome, or calls them sweet, then desire must be building. But here's the truth. Approval and attraction are worlds apart. Approval lives on the surface. It's polite. It's her way of saying, "You're fine." But fine never keeps her up at night. Fine never makes her wonder about you the next day. Approval doesn't create longing. It creates nothing more than courtesy. When you're chasing approval, what you're really saying is, "Please tell me I'm good enough." You're handing her the authority to define your value, as if you need her permission slip to be desirable. That's weak energy, and it pushes her further away. Interest, however, is different. Interest says, "Here I am. Let's see if you can keep up." It creates an experience, a tension, a spark that pulls her closer, while approval-seeking always makes her step back. Sparking interest makes her lean in. The Stoics knew this dynamic long before psychology gave it words. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, if you live your life chasing the approval of others, you'll never live with authenticity. The same truth applies in attraction. Approval may earn you a polite smile, but it will never ignite her heart. Just look around. Men who chase approval contort themselves like acrobats. If she looks bored, they change their tone. If she doesn't laugh, they scramble to tell another story. If she seems distant, they buy her another drink. It's a losing game, because approval never transforms into desire. Now contrast that with the man who understands attraction. He isn't desperate to prove himself. He doesn't bend to every shift in her mood. Instead, he stays grounded, playful, steady. He creates an emotional rhythm that makes her curious, that makes her want to enter his world. This is why so many men get confused. They say, "But she told me I was nice. She said I was sweet. Why didn't she want more?" The answer is simple. She gave approval, not interest. Approval is safe. Interest is dangerous. Interest carries polarity, tension, and desire. As Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them knows the truth. Translated into relationships, the approval you chase is worthless if it isn't born from genuine attraction. Here's the paradox: when you stop chasing approval, that's when real interest begins to grow. When you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start declaring, "This is who I am," that's when she feels the spark. Because women aren't moved by compliance. They're moved by presence, energy, and a man who radiates value without needing her to confirm it. Now lock this in. Write in the comments, "I choose interest." That's your declaration that from today, you're done begging for approval and ready to embody the man who pulls women in with presence, not permission. Number 5, calm desire wins. Most men completely misread what true attraction looks like. They assume it's about turning the volume up, louder jokes, flashier clothes, constant energy, or chasing without pause. They believe desire must roar like a wildfire, burning bright and impossible to ignore. But here's the reality: flames that blaze too hot usually burn out quickly. what truly endures, what genuinely draws a woman in, is something quieter, calm, desire. It's the steady presence that says, I want you, but I don't need to consume you. Calm desire is attraction without desperation. It's grounded, measured, and intentional. Why does it work so powerfully? Because it communicates control. It shows her that you move with purpose, not impulse. You want her. Yes, but the outcome doesn't define you. That distinction makes all the difference. Let's bring this to life with a picture. Michael, 35, living in Chicago, goes on a second date with Hannah, 29. His nerves take over. He talks too quickly, laughs too loudly, fidgets with his fork. He thinks his enthusiasm proves his interest. But Hannah doesn't feel chemistry. She feels pressure, and pressure suffocates attraction. Now imagine Michael approaches with calm desire. He slows down. He allows silence to breathe instead of rushing to fill it. His gaze is steady but relaxed. He listens more than he talks, leaning back with quiet focus instead of bouncing from topic to topic. Hannah senses something shift. The pressure is gone, replaced with ease. Not tension, but safety. His calm desire tells her, I'm here. I'm interested, but I won't lose myself trying to win you. That steadiness creates space for her to lean in. And this is where most men go wrong. They flood a woman with too much attention, thinking more equals better. But attraction isn't about drowning her in energy. It's about leaving room for her to feel your presence and choose to respond. Calm desire is more than attractive. It builds trust. When your energy isn't frantic, she sees your steadiness, and steadiness is rare. It makes her feel safe enough to open her own feminine energy, deepening the connection. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." In relationships, calm desire is proof of inner power. It's the balance between wanting and waiting, guiding and listening. Think back to when you were drawn to someone deeply but didn't rush. That quiet confidence left a stronger imprint than any flashy move. Because when women sense calm desire, mystery arises. Mystery fuels imagination, and imagination fuels attraction. So here's your anchor. Write in the comments, I choose calm. That's your vow to let go of frantic energy and embody the stillness that naturally draws her closer. Number 6, be the poet. When most men hear the phrase, be the poet, they imagine standing on stage, reciting lines from Shakespeare or quoting famous verses to impress a woman. But that's not what it means at all. Being the poet isn't about memorized words or flowery speeches. It's about depth. It's about energy. It's about speaking in a way that makes her feel something she didn't expect to feel. Here's the mistake most men make. They lean on logic when talking to women. They think listing their career, their future plans, or their accomplishments will automatically spark attraction. But logic doesn't ignite desire. Logic informs the brain. Attraction, however, lives in the senses. It's in the unspoken atmosphere you create every time you open your mouth. That's where the poet lives. The poet doesn't just describe, he paints. He doesn't say, the sunset looks nice. He says, the horizon looks like fire tonight. He doesn't ask, how was your day? He leans closer and says, Tell me the moment today that made you laugh without holding back. One is flat. The other opens a door into emotion, into connection, into resonance. And here's the truth. Women rarely remember the exact words you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. When you speak like a poet, you awaken her senses. You don't have to be dramatic. You simply have to be aware. Notice the way her eyes light up when she talks about something she loves. Hear the softness in her tone when she recalls a childhood memory. Reflect it back to her with honesty. That's poetry. Ordinary words given extraordinary weight. The Stoics understood this balance. Epictetus once said, "First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, your words are not decorations. They come from presence. They come from who you are becoming. They aren't tricks. They are reflections of the man you're shaping yourself into. And here's the paradox. The poet doesn't try hard. Trying too hard kills the magic. The poet lets beauty flow naturally. He allows silence. He slows down. Because even silence can be poetic, the pause before you speak. The weight behind your words. The way you listen fully when she shares. That's what makes her lean closer. Think back to a time when someone said something simple, yet it stayed with you for days. Why? Because it resonated. Maybe it was timing. Maybe it was calm, confidence. Maybe it was the fact that they noticed what no one else did. That's what being the poet is all about. Resonance, not vocabulary. Here's the hidden truth. Practicing this reconnects you with your own emotions. Too many men have been trained to shut theirs down. But women can feel when a man has depth, when he feels deeply yet still carries steady masculinity. That blend of strength and vulnerability is magnetic. So how do you begin? Start small. Notice beauty in your everyday life. Describe it in a way that gives it life. Ask deeper questions. Slow your speech. Let her feel your presence in your attention. You don't need to be a writer. You just need to live vividly. And let that vividness spill into your words, because the poet doesn't chase. He inspires. He doesn't try to impress. He creates space where attraction can breathe on its own. Now, ask yourself, are your words just noise? Or are they music? Write in the comments, "I speak depth." That's your commitment to bringing more resonance into your presence. Number 7. Presence over words. Most men believe attraction is built through what they say. They obsess over clever one-liners, witty comebacks, or the perfect phrase that will supposedly unlock a woman's interest. But here's the reality. Real attraction doesn't come from words. It comes from presence. Think about it. Women rarely recall every sentence a man utters. What lingers is how she felt in his company. Your presence communicates far more than 1,000 polished lines ever could. Let's put this into perspective. Consider Ryan, 31, living in Boston. He's intelligent, articulate, and knows how to keep a conversation moving. On paper, he's the ideal dinner date. But Ryan has one problem. He can't tolerate silence. Each pause feels like a failure. So he fills the air with more chatter jokes, explanations, random commentary. From the outside, nothing seems wrong. His date, Emily, 28, smiles politely, and the night flows easily. But beneath the surface, she senses something missing. Ryan isn't connecting. He's performing. and performance always feels hollow. Now imagine a different scene. At a weekend gathering, Emily meets Marcus. Sancho-san. Marcus doesn't rush to impress. He begins with a thoughtful question, then listens with genuine focus. He doesn't interrupt. He holds steady eye contact, not intimidating, but enough to make her feel truly seen. When she speaks, he nods slowly, giving her words room to breathe. His calm presence creates safety, inviting her to open up more. That night, when Emily returns home, whose memory stays with her, not Ryan, the entertainer, but Marcus, the man who was present. That is the essence of this principle. Women are drawn to men who simply are, not men who overcompensate. When you're anxious and trying too hard, your energy scatters. Even if your words sound confident, she feels the nervousness underneath. But when you are grounded, calm, and comfortable with silence, your presence speaks louder than any rehearsed line. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Your inner world, whether chaotic or calm, bleeds into your presence. You cannot fake it. If your thoughts are frantic, it will show. If your mind is steady, purposeful, and rooted, she'll feel it before you even open your mouth. Here's the common mistake. Men confuse presence with silence. But presence is not about being mute. It's about depth. When you do speak, your words carry weight because they aren't lost in noise. Women are highly attuned to energy. They can tell when you're truly listening versus just waiting for your turn to talk. So how do you cultivate presence? Start by slowing down. When she talks, stop preparing your next clever line. Just listen. When silence comes, don't panic. Let it breathe. Hold eye contact with calm steadiness, not desperation. Ground yourself in your breath and the present moment. The more rooted you are, the more magnetic you become. Think back to Ryan. If he had paused, asked one meaningful question, and simply listened, the entire evening could have shifted. Instead of being talked at, Emily would have felt truly connected. And connection is what women remember, not performance. So here's the takeaway. Women are drawn to the man whose presence says, "I am enough." The man who listens. The man who isn't afraid of silence. The man who doesn't need to prove himself with noise. Now it's your turn. Do you find yourself filling space just to impress? If so, write in the comments, "I choose presence." That is your declaration from today forward. Your presence will speak louder than your words. Number 8. The power of silence. Among all the qualities a man can develop, few are as overlooked and as misunderstood as this one, the ability to embrace silence. Most men are terrified of it. They assume that if every second isn't filled with chatter, the woman will get bored, lose interest, or silently judge them as unworthy. So they scramble. They throw in extra stories, extra jokes, endless explanations, anything to avoid the pause. But here's the truth. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. It's not a void you need to cover up. It's a signal of power. Women are incredibly intuitive. They can instantly sense the difference between a man who feels comfortable in his own skin and a man who is desperately trying to prove his worth. When you can hold silence without panic, You send a powerful message. I don't need your validation. I'm grounded. I am not afraid of space. And that presence alone creates attraction on a level most men will never reach. Picture it, a pause in the conversation, a steady gaze, a slow, unhurried smile. These moments carry more weight than 100 clever one-liners. They show control. They reveal presence. And presence is what women naturally lean toward. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus once said, "Silence is safer than speech." He didn't mean never talk. He meant that silence protects you from revealing weakness, from speaking thoughtlessly, from saying things that aren't aligned with who you are. In relationships, the same principle applies. Silence gives you space to observe instead of react. It turns your responses from impulsive to intentional. Most men underestimate just how magnetic stillness can be. When you stop rushing to fill every gap, something changes. She begins to fill it. She starts asking questions. She shares more of herself. She invests in the moment. Simply because you weren't afraid of the quiet. Now let's clear something up. Silence is not passivity. It's not coldness. It's not shutting down. It's confidence. It's proof that your presence has weight even when you say nothing. And when silence is paired with calm body language, relaxed shoulders, steady breathing, unshaken eyes, your impact multiplies. It shows composure. It shows you are unshaken. Here's the key difference: silence that intrigues versus silence that feels awkward. When you finally speak after silence, your words carry 10 times the power. Why? Because you haven't buried her in endless chatter. You've allowed anticipation to grow, and anticipation makes her lean in. Women are not drawn to the man who talks the most. They're drawn to the man whose silence makes her curious, the man whose stillness keeps her guessing. That's where mystery begins, and mystery fuels attraction. So, here's the lesson: stop running from silence. Lean into it. Let her feel your calm. Let her wonder. Let her step into the space you create. That's how you stop being just another voice in the crowd and become the man she can't stop thinking about. Now lock it in. Type this in the comments: I master silence. That's your declaration. That's your step into quiet power. Number 9. Stillness creates fire. Most men believe attraction comes from movement, more talking, more showing off, more chasing. But the truth is, the deepest spark often comes from doing less. Stillness has its own magnetic force. It pulls her in, making her feel something powerful without you saying a word. When a man stands calm, grounded, and unshaken, he radiates confidence that can't be faked. His energy speaks. He isn't desperate. He isn't performing. He is steady in who he is. That steadiness creates a heat women notice instantly. Picture David, 35, at a rooftop bar with friends. Instead of pacing, scanning nervously, or forcing conversation, he leans back, sips his drink with ease, and enjoys the atmosphere. He doesn't chase attention. When Laura, 29, walks over with a playful smile, David doesn't rush to prove himself. He listens. He lets pause breathe, and his stillness does the work. This is the fire of stillness. It isn't passive or dull. It's magnetic. It draws her closer, without you chasing. Because women can sense when a man owns his energy, that quiet steadiness becomes a flame. It creates a polarity that makes her want to step nearer. Too many men mistake stillness for doing nothing. But true stillness is intentional, holding your ground, letting tension rise, resisting the urge to break it. That's why it builds heat. It gives desire room to grow. Attraction isn't always about movement, it's about energy. When you master stillness, you don't just stand in her presence, you ignite it. Now lock it in. Write in the comments, "I own my energy." That's your declaration. That's your step into magnetic power. Number 10. Unforgettable without trying. Here's the truth. When a man fully embodies his masculine presence, he doesn't need flashy moves or clever tricks to leave a mark. He becomes unforgettable simply by being grounded in who he is, not through noise or performance, but through the feeling he leaves behind. Most men assume memorability comes from bigger laughs, wilder stories, or constant efforts to impress, but those fade quickly. What endures is presence. She won't always remember your words, but she will remember the steadiness in your eyes, the calm she felt at your side, the security that came from your composure. Think of Michael, 36. For years, he relied on humor, cracking jokes to win approval. Women enjoyed the moment but rarely thought of him again. When he stopped performing and began listening with quiet strength, everything shifted. Later, Emma, 30, admitted, "I couldn't stop thinking about you." That's what unforgettable looks like. It bypasses logic and settles into memory. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your inner world is steady, every interaction reflects it. Being unforgettable is subtraction, not addition. Stop forcing, stop chasing, and stand firmly in yourself. That is when you become the man she cannot forget. If today's message resonated with you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another lesson that could quietly reshape your life. Remember, real men don't chase, they lead. We choose growth over fear, strength over noise. Together, we rise. Thank you for watching. Gentlemen, I'll see you in the next video.